Hi, welcome to Bits and Pieces Quilting. Today I'd like to share with you my top 5 high-end quilting tools that are essential in my sewing room. Stay tuned. Hi, my name's Michelle, and today I want to talk about the 5 expensive but essential tools in my sewing room. The first is my sewing machine. I sew on a Juki TL 210Q. It is a workhorse of a machine. I purchased it about 6 years ago and I love it. It has no fancy bells and whistles. It doesn't connect to the internet. It doesn't do alphabets. It doesn't do buttonholes. It doesn't do anything except sew a beautiful straight line with power. And it works so well for me and the kind of sewing and quilting that I'm interested in. Years and years and years ago, when I started my quilting journey, I thought I wanted to be a garment maker. And boy, that's really, really tough. I have huge admiration for people who are able to make beautiful clothing that fits beautifully. I could do the first part. I could make beautiful clothing, but I could not get it to fit beautifully. And so as I went along in my quilting journey, I realized I didn't need a fancy machine that covered buttonholes and hem stitching and all those other things that you need in garment sewing. What I needed was a machine that sewed a straight line beautifully and then allowed me to machine quilt my quilts with power and efficiency. And for me, the Juki meets all of those requirements. It's a great tool and I wouldn't be where I am in my sewing journey without it. The next tool I want to talk about is my up-down desk. This was an investment in my sewing room when I knew that I would have a dedicated sewing space. Prior to my dedicated sewing room, I would sew on the kitchen counter or the dining room table, and I always found that the dining room table was too low to be great for me for cutting, and the kitchen counter was just a tiny bit too high. And so when looking to furnish my sewing room, I was thrilled to be able to get an up-down desk, a desk that I can raise to the perfect height for me for cutting, or that I can lower and just use as a regular desk in my sewing room. It's been a game changer and I'm grateful to have it. The third tool I want to talk about is my Wobble stool. This has a funny story behind it. My husband saw it on a free cycle buy nothing website and thought it would make a great addition to my sewing room. I was a complete skeptic at first because, as you can see, it's a wobble stool and it wobbles, and I wasn't sure how he thought it would be useful. But as in most things, Jason was right, and it's an amazing stool for sewing with. I'm able to move with my fabric and move on the stool in a way that keeps my core stable without wrenching my back, but still gives me that opportunity to move as I'm sewing. It's particularly useful when I'm machine quilting and I need to lean in a little bit or move to the side or move to the back, and I find it's really, really comfortable. I move the height up and down depending on what I'm doing. If I'm sitting at my up-down desk designing, I can put up the stool really high and just lean into it. Or if I'm sitting at my sewing machine, I can adjust the height perfectly for what I'm working on. The fourth tool that I'm grateful for in my sewing room is my tablet computer. It is a workhorse across many different applications for sewing for me, including just entertainment when I'm sewing. I'll often put on YouTube videos or TV shows just to keep me entertained. But it's also the tool that I use to edit my videos, to design and write my patterns, and to build my website. It's a critical tool, it's an expensive tool, but again, I'm really grateful to have it in my sewing room. The fifth tool I'd like to talk about isn't really a tool at all, but rather it's my sewing room. It is a dream to have a dedicated space to sew. Early in my journey, I would work at the kitchen table, I would work at a table in the corner of the living room, and sometimes even in the kitchen. And my family were very tolerant on those days and weeks when I would leave projects out in an effort to get them done. But with a dedicated sewing room, I'm able to start and stop and work on projects whenever I want. It's a space where I can explore my creativity, I can leave things out, I can putter in here, and just spend the time and energy that I want to dedicate to my craft. I haven't always been privileged and lucky enough to have my own sewing studio, but over the last couple of moves, I've been so grateful for the space. Thanks very much for watching this video on the high-end tools that support my quilting journey. Leave me a comment down below to tell me what you're grateful for, to tell me what really expensive tools you couldn't live without. I'll also do a video on the inexpensive tools because those too can contribute to our sewing success. Thanks again for watching, and make the most of your fabric bits and pieces.